This is Clem with Clem's Organic Gardens in Brevard, North Carolina. Today is June 21st, 2017, and this is part 3 of my videos showing my experiment with planting winter squash into a rolled cover crop. So it's been about 3 weeks from, I think, when we last looked at this. So I had the compost rows, windrows in there, or bands rather. And I planted the squash, direct seeded it, just stuck it in by hand, and then waited right before it emerged, which takes about a week. I covered it with row cover, and then that was on for about 12 days, I think 12 days, and then I just took it off this morning before it started drizzling here, and we're seeing what's underneath. So overall, I mean, I'm still really skeptical about the idea. So, I mean, obviously you can see, so over here is where I had the oats and crimson clover that I rolled, and then decided that it wasn't going to be enough of a mulch, and so I just disked it in and like reformed the beds really quickly at the last minute, which you know, means there's a ton of weeds in here. If you can't see it, there's just like kind of a green mat. So again, like it's been on a row cover for 2 weeks almost, so I haven't been able to cultivate it, but I will try to cultivate that as soon as I can, hopefully before it rains anymore here. And when I do that, I just go through with it's just a rear mounted toolbar cultivator, so it's not going to get too close. And then I'll also get closer with the wheel hoe to work on that. But you can see that the band of compost does quite a bit to keep weeds from coming up. So there aren't a whole lot of weeds in the actual band of compost. There are some, but it's definitely better. So it makes it a little easier to cultivate. I can't help myself. And so yeah, so that doesn't look great. It would have been better, I might have said this before, to have formed tilled this all in and formed the beds earlier, and then cover them with the tarps. Again, the tarps, I got some tarps further out there. They hold the moisture in, and I keep them on for a couple of weeks or more to allow weeds to germinate, and then they die underneath. So when you uncover the tarps prior to planting, you have you've kind of pre-weeded it almost. In this case, I did do that, but it was with but then I went through and disked it all up again, and I'm sure brought a bunch of new weed seeds up, which didn't help. So I think, keep sticking to that method, but preparing the bed, putting the tarp on, taking the tarp off after the time period, then putting that mulch, I'm sorry, not the mulch, the compost, the band of compost on top, and seeding into that would work probably the best of all options. The rolled cover crop, I mean, obviously, like, there's fewer weeds in here than over there, but I'm still skeptical because I can't get in and cultivate. And there's various like kind of perennial weeds. There's a plantain, and there's various spots where there's dock poking up. But there's other annual weeds. The morning glory has a pretty large seed. It pokes up, and even where there's thin spots, there's smaller annual weeds. There's a bunch of tiny weeds coming up. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll probably try to go over this with a flame weeder to kill some stuff. This might be nutsedge. I hope it's not. I'm kind of in denial about it right now. But yeah, I mean, I think this will work. I think it works probably if you don't have real high standards for weed control. Like, there's definitely going to be weeds come up, but you could just leave it alone and you'd get a decent crop of winter squash without having to weed it. I mean, by the end of the season, you'd have a bunch of weeds going to seed, which is not what I want. So I'll try to come through here and control it however I can. But yeah, so that's my take. Unless you have fields that like just really hardly have any weeds or weed seeds in them. I don't know. Right now I don't really see this working. I mean, it looks cool now, but long term I'm not so sure about it. But you can see like all the plants, the squash all looks good. We got good germination in the band of compost on both sides. So that's good. And with those row covers on, the row covers are mostly to keep cucumber beetles off the little small plants, because that's when they can do the most damage. So I'm sure the cucumber beetles will all move in here now that the row covers are off, but once the plants are bigger, they can withstand it somewhat. And the row cover I use is a medium weight. I want to say like 24 ounce. It's a Cultivation brand, and I don't use any hoops. I just put it straight on, which seems to work fine. Even up. I mean, they just kind of push up under the row cover, and I hold it down on the edges with sandbags. The pieces I use are, I think they're 26 feet wide, and I have them cut. These ones are 300 feet long, so they cover 4 beds. And then I had a row of sandbags down the middle, holding them down. And they're not super loose. They're kind of loose, but yeah, it doesn't really seem to bother the plants. I am a little careful taking them off, because that's the part where it seems like they could damage the plants, since they're like resting right on the plants. And you can see these are they're a little floppy. That's from where I just pulled the row cover off, but I'm sure they'll straighten up just fine. And anything else? So I'm gonna get out here, get on the tractor, and try to cultivate this, at least knock back these weeds somewhat before it rains anymore. This isn't ideal weather for cultivation, obviously, but you do what you can. There's a lot of weeds. And then, yeah, over here, the other squash is looking just fine. And I've been going through that with the tractor cultivators and the wheel hoe. And we did some long-handled hoe weeding and just pulling weeds around the plants. But they're starting to spread out. And hopefully we'll cover the soil before a lot more weeds can come up. And I think that, anything else? I did plant specific varieties. I kind of switched up my field layout so that the more aggressive squash varieties are in the mulch, the ones that will cover the whole field more quickly, because I figured that would be better, because the weeds are going to be coming up in there, whereas over here I can keep the weeds down. And so some of the smaller bush type plants would be better suited over here. And that's where we're at right now.